What is going on, Jay Bears? Andrew J back here presenting you episode 9 of the Jay by the Bay podcast. I'm excited to present to you today's episode. Today I'll be going through the whole NFC Outlook, kind of like I did last week at the AFC. I'll be going through the North, East, South, West, just breaking down each team, how I think they'll end at the end of the season. Be kind of, each team's strength, weakness, which players I like, which players I'm concerned about. But yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. As always, I like to point out I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff. But as always, remember football news, football conversations, football year round. With that being said, let's get into it. All right, to lead things off, we got the NFC North. This is a division I do think that could be up in the air. Anybody can come out on top. Bears, Packers, Lions. I'm not as high on the Vikings, but I won't rule them out. But I do have the Bears come out on top. Big picture, I just think Caleb Williams took a major step forward last season. Finally looks like Chicago, has found their franchise quarterback. I know it's only been 2 seasons, but coming off of the divisional round appearance where they really, gave the Rams a run for their money. But yeah, I think they're trending towards, becoming a Super Bowl contender. Williams did crack the top 10, my top 10 QB list, as well as ESPN's. He does, like I said, does look like the long-term answer. The run game, one of the better running back duels in the game. DeAndre Swift, Kyle Monangai, who was an absolute steal in the 7th round last year. He was just such a compliment to Swift in that run game. But I would put them in my top 5 running back duel. DJ Moore was dealt to the Bills, but they were actually able to get a 2nd-round pick. So, I think it's a guy. He was a guy that probably would have been released, but the Bills liked him that much. That's why they gave up a 2nd-rounder. But this gives a chance. Rome Odunze, becomes receiver 1. Even though there's questions about, if he's a true number 1. Started the last season off super hot. I actually had him on my fantasy team. I was like, oh, man, I hit a home run drafting him. And then, the injuries slowed him down. He ended up missing 5 games. But I think it's time for him to shine as Williams' number 1 option. And then Luther Burden takes, he takes over as receiver 2. So he takes Adunze's spot last year. The tight end room, this is one of my favorite tight end rooms. Colston Loveland already looks like he's the real deal. They took him. He was the first tight end off the board last year. Cole Kmet remains a reliable veteran. He's another option there. And then they also added Sam Rush in the 3rd round out of Stanford. So there's outstanding depth in this room. The offensive line, much improved from 2 seasons ago. Last season, they allowed just 13 sacks opposed to 37 the season before. So they completely just cut those sacks and, more than in half. But, it could be a top 5 unit. Joe Thuney leads that group. You also got Jonah Jackson, Darnell Wright, and now Garrett Bradbury, who they brought in, traded for. Also added the Remington Trophy winner, Logan Jones, in the 2nd round. So I think he gets some reps, whether, he's used as a 6th lineman or gets some reps at center and guard. To the defensive side of the ball, defensive line, biggest weakness on the roster to me, Montez Sweat is the clear leader of that group. Grady Jarrett, he's, he can be a contributor, but he is getting older. The linebacker group, solid group overall. Added TJ Edwards, Devin Bush. Bush played lights out the last 2 seasons for Cleveland. He essentially played himself out of the contract there. But, I think this is a good group of guys there. Secondary, middle of the pack unit last season. Jalen Johnson headlines this group. You also got Tyreek Stevenson. He continues to improve. And Tyler Gordon, healthy entering camp. So that's a plus. And also I had Super Bowl champion Kobe Bryant. Drafted Dylan Thieneman, who was arguably the top safety in the draft. But final thoughts, I really like this football team. Everything is trending, upward. I think they're ready to win the NFC North. So I think they make a deep playoff run. I do end up having them reaching the NFC Championship, where I think they fall to eventful Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams. So I do have them finishing 11-6 as NFC North champs, but then falling in the NFC Championship game. The Green Bay Packers, I got them finishing 2nd in the division this year in the North. Big picture, still a very good football team, even after losing several key players. Injuries create some concern. Still a playoff caliber team. Quarterback, Jordan Love, top 10 quarterback in my rankings. 3 straight winning seasons as a starter, 3 straight postseason appearances as a starter. The run game, Josh Jacobs is still that guy. As long as he, doesn't have any, run-ins with the law anymore, as long as he stays out of trouble. But still one of the better running backs in football. I am concerned about the depth behind him, though. Receiver, they did lose Romeo Dubes to free agency, but they still have Christian Watson, Jaden Reed. Both have struggled with injuries, but Matthew Golden should see a larger role. So first round pick last year. I think he sees an improved role. At tight end, Tucker Kraft, already in top five tight end conversations. He is returning from an injury, and it does look like he possibly will be ready week one. So that would be very, very big if they can. He's kind of turned into a security blanket for Jordan Love. Offensive line, not as strong as previous seasons. Zach Tom, he anchors this unit. They lost, or they actually released Elgton Jenkins, who ended up signing with the Cleveland Browns. They lost Rasheed Walker in free agency, who ended up signing with Carolina. And then, but they did add Aaron Banks, who I really liked. I liked him come out of college a few years back out of Notre Dame, but he comes over, signs on. He was with the San Francisco 49ers last year. Jordan Morgan, he gets another shot at left tackle. This is a guy who they took in the first round 2 years back, ended up losing it to Rasheed Walker, who left in free agency. So he gets another opportunity, second chance here for Morgan. To the defensive side, above average group. Deontay Wyatt earned his contract extension, so they got him locked in. Pass rush takes a hit. Obviously, Micah Parsons likely out until mid-October. He suffered that ACL injury last season. They lost Rashawn Gary and Kingsley Ignabari, so they both left in free agency. They need Lucas Van Ness to finally break out in year 4. This is going to be his 4th season. This, I think, is his last shot to really, prove to Green Bay what he's got. So this is kind of, looking like a contract year. So it's a make it or break it season for him. The linebacker, Quay Walker, departs in free agency, signs with the Raiders, but they do add Zaire Franklin, who's a tackling machine. Edgerrin Cooper seems like another Packer draftee that's a hit. They also extended Isaiah McDuffie this offseason. So linebacker group looking good. Secondary, this is by far the strength of this defense. Xavier McKinney, top 5 safety. Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Kayshawn Nixon. Also, added Brandon Cisse in the second round this year. I thought that was a steal there. But final thoughts, still a playoff team. Good roster despite the injuries. I don't see them making a postseason run, though. So I do have them finishing 10-7 with a wild card bid, but I have them losing in the wild card round as well. The Detroit Lions, one of the most talented rosters in football. This is a star-studded Lions team. At quarterback, you got Jared Goff, firmly inside my top 10. Blair actually had him in his top 5 if you listened to the episode last week. I have him personally ranked as my 7th best quarterback, but he has definitely solidified himself as a top 10 QB. The run game, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's as elite as they come. Arguably number 1 running back in all football. Bijan Robinson definitely gives him a run for his money, but absolute top 5 running back in the league. Should thrive without David Montgomery. They did add Isaiah Pacheco to complement him, though. At receiver, Amon St. Brown, Jameson Williams, still one of the better receiver duos. At tight end, Sam Laporta, he returns healthy. Expecting a bounce-back season from him. I think he gets back to Pro Bowl form. Offensive line, still one of Detroit's biggest strengths. Penei Sewell, arguably the best tackle in all of football. Tate Ratledge, he continues to develop. And then first-round pick Blake Miller is looking like he's going to be slated to start at right tackle this season. At the defensive side of things, the defensive line, they had it down year last year. They had a lot of injuries. Aiden Hutchinson still leads the way for them. Should improve after battling injuries last season, though, so I think improvement there on the line. At linebacker, they lost Alex Anzalone to free agency. He signs with Tampa Bay, but All-Pro Jack Campbell, he still continues to lead that group. Absolute hit of a linebacker. 3 seasons ago, they got him and Jahmyr Gibbs in the same draft. Secondary, some concerns. Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, both safeties are recovering from injuries. Not sure if they're going to be ready for week 1. I don't believe they will be. Won't be a good start for the season for the secondary. DJ Reed does become the number 1 cornerback after the release of Terrion Arnold with everything going on. Keith Abney, who fell to them in the 5th round, will get an opportunity to get extensive playing time, though. Final thoughts, without a question, loaded roster, very capable of proving me wrong. Every good team misses out, every season. There's always a good team that just plays lights out all the regular season and they just miss out towards the end. So this year, I think it's Detroit again. So I think they finished 9-8 and missed the playoffs. The Minnesota Vikings. So I have them finishing the bottom of the NFC North this year. Big picture, I think Minnesota regrets letting Sam Darnold walk. Look what he's done in Seattle in his first season Super Bowl victory. But, yeah, too many questions at quarterback, too many questions along the offensive line. So they bring in Kyler Murray. They sign him to a 1-year deal. J.J. McCarthy's still there. They still have questions, so they bring in Murray to compete with him. I think Murray wins the starting job, and I think he shows flashes. Still not convinced he's the long-term answer. But if McCarthy does not see the field at all this year. I think that's it. I think he's done in Minnesota. But like I said, I don't think Murray's the long-term answer there. The run game, strong group. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, rookie Damon Claiborne, who I expect to get a lot of playing time. The receiver, Jordan Jefferson, Jordan Addison. That's a great tandem right there. They're arguably in the top 5 with receiver tandems. Bring in Jawan Jennings via free agency from San Francisco. So yeah, one of the better receiving corps in football. Wouldn't be surprised if Jefferson though grows frustrated with the quarterback situation throughout the season because, like I said, I mean I don't think Minnesota does much this year. So I think Jefferson. I think he grows frustrated. At tight end, TJ Hawkinson's still one of the better tight ends in football. The offensive line, good on paper, needs to become great though. Christian Darrisaw is the key. Brian O'Neill just signed another extension. This is a second big contract with the Vikings. Donovan Jackson needs a year 2, jump. Will Freeze must play better for the amount of money that they have invested in him. So yeah, there's too much money, too much money invested in this offensive line for them not to dominate. On the defensive line, going on the defensive side of things, despite not having an elite player, they actually ranked number 1 in pressures last year. I have a good feeling about this defensive front. I'm very high on Dallas Turner. I thought he was a top 10 prospect when he was coming out of the draft 2 seasons ago. They ended up getting at 17. So what a selection, what a grab there. I'm still iffy on Caleb Banks, who they took this year, and that's mainly just due part to his injury history. However, at 6'6", 330 pounds, he's such an intimidating guy. So if he's healthy and if he shows what he's done in the past for Florida, that can be a hit. Like I said, I'm iffy on the selection, but I mean, if he pans out, that's a hit right there for that defense in Minnesota. At linebacker, Andrew Van Ginkel, still a very underrated player to me. High football IQ, leader of the defense. The secondary, moved on from 14-year vet Harrison Smith, who turned 37. He was still contributing though. I think he still ended up with 2 picks last year and near double-digit passes defended. But they got Isaiah Rodgers, Byron Murphy, solid group overall. So, but final thoughts, too many offensive questions. Defensive keeps them competitive this year. Last place finish. My hot take though, for this season though, I think Justin Jefferson is the next star, all pro receiver who forces himself out of his team this year. A.J. Brown was that last year. Ended up waiting to the offseason, but I think that could be a situation here with Jefferson. Not necessarily, maybe not a mid-year trade, but I think he gets disgruntled enough where he's out of Minnesota this year. But yeah, prediction, I have them finishing 7-10 and missing the playoffs. To the NFC East. So my top team in the NFC East shouldn't come to a surprise, but I got the Philadelphia Eagles. They've been running that division for what seems like 10 seasons now. But yeah, Philadelphia, big picture. I think they're primed to win the NFC East again this year. Even with a new offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts, I believe every single season since he's been a starter, he's had a different offensive coordinator. So Sean Mannion comes in there now after being the quarterback's coach with the Packers. But this is still one of my favorite, complete rosters in all football on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. They're looking good. But yeah, like I said, Jalen Hurts enters another season yet again with a different offense coordinator. Despite all the turnover, he's consistently produced. And, with that, to me, that's why he's a top 10 quarterback to me. Run game, Saquon Barkley's numbers dipped last year, but that's mainly because he rushed for 2,000 yards last, 2 seasons ago. So, I mean, he still last year still rushed for over 1,100 yards and over 4 yards per carry. He came out to 4.1 yards per carry. And he remained a weapon out of the backfield as a receiver. But yeah, I still view Barkley as a top 5 running back. I have no idea why he keeps dropping down on the power rankings. And then behind him, a lot of quality depth. You got Tank Bigsby, Will Shipley, and Damian Pierce. So, I mean, nice running back committee there in Philadelphia. At receiver, trade away A.J. Brown. That doesn't bother me as much as it does some people. I think it's actually a breath of fresh air for Philadelphia. I think that was really starting to become a distraction. And it seemed like there is more to the picture. I think there was some rift between him and Jalen Hurts. So I did think Brown was a distraction. So Devontae Smith now becomes receiver 1. I thought he was, they basically had 2 number 1s with him and Brown. So this gives him a chance to really prove people like, hey, I'm the number 1 guy. And then, if they take Mekhi Lemon with their first round pick, He slides right there as the receiver 2. And then they got the Tavion Wicks, Marquise Hollywood Brown, and Elijah Moore. Gives them, plenty of depth there at the receiving position, so plenty of options. At tight end, Dallas Goedert continues, to be one of the better tight ends in football. Also used a second-round pick on Eli Stowers, who was arguably the best receiving tight end in the draft. So they got him. So, plenty of weapons, plenty of support for Jalen Hurts to succeed. The offensive line still remains one of the league's best. Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata are still the best tackle duo in all football. Landon Dickerson, there's questions about him retiring last season, but he's still there. But he's still playing at a Pro Bowl level. Tyler Steen keeps improving. Cam Jurgens had a down season last year, but he's still a reliable center. I think he has a bounce back year. On the defensive side, they lost some key contributors, but they lock up. They get Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, all extended this offseason. Jonathan Grenard, tremendous replacement for Jalen Phillips, who left in free agency to Carolina. So, in a way, I think that's a slight improvement. Some people will knock me for that. I just think Grenard's just been a little bit more consistent. At linebacker, Jahad Campbell now gets the opportunity to, step up and lead that defense with Nakobe Dean departing for the Raiders in free agency. Zach Bond continues being one of the NFL's best linebackers, so solid linebacker room there. Secondary, this group is loaded. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, signed Tyreek Woolen, who won a Super Bowl of Seattle. But Tyreek Woolen, I was so huge on this guy. I know he ended up going to Seattle, and not even because of that. That's why I had comparisons with Richard Sherman. But he was another example. He was another example of a receiver that switched the cornerback. When you do that, you're able to kind of know how a receiver thinks. Now, a lot of them, they all, coming through Pop Warner High School, they all played both positions. If you're a receiver, you play corner. If you're a corner, you play receiver. But when you get to the pro level, it's completely different. So I said when he was a 5th-round pick, I'm like, this guy's going to be a stud. And he was. And he helped Seattle win a Super Bowl, and now he's got a chance to help Philadelphia win a Super Bowl. So that's a huge sign, worth every penny. But this is an outstanding trio there in Philadelphia. But yeah, final thoughts. Philadelphia is still one of the NFL's elite teams. I think they win the division again. However, I have the Birds falling short of the NFC Championship game this season. So I have them finishing 13-4, winning the East, but falling short of the championship game. The Dallas Cowboys, or who I like to call the Yankees of the NFL. The Cowboys always seem talented, but they just can't get over the hump. I do think Jerry Jones actually put together a competitive team this offseason. At quarterback, Dak Prescott enters year 11. He is fully healthy, and he played all 17 games last year. He has plenty of weapons around him. I do think Dak has a very good season. The running game, Javonte Williams is a solid running back 1. I don't expect him to repeat last year's production, though. I just don't see him averaging 5 yards per carry again. But again, not a knock on him. I don't think he follows it up. And again, he could prove me wrong. I just don't see it again. A receiver, you got CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. Gives Dallas 2 legitimate number 1 receivers there. Pickens looks good in camp. He looks okay playing on the franchise tag this season. So they'll either got to move on from him next offseason or decide if they want to re-sign him. But he does seem, happy right now. But yeah, like I said, him and CeeDee Lamb, one of the better receiving duos in the league. At tight end, Jake Ferguson continues to improve. He's become a security blanket for Dak. Luke Schoonmaker, solid tight end 2 there. Keep an look out for Michael Trigg, who was undrafted out of Baylor. I really like this guy. I'm surprised he went undrafted. I think this is a steal. I think he ends up making the roster, and I think he gets some playing time on this football team. The offensive line, on paper, this is an excellent line. They have underperformed. They did underperform last season. I do expect improvement. Tyler Smith does remain the anchor on that line. Tyler Booker and Tyler Guyton. This is a line full of Tylers. But I do believe that Booker and Guyton, they should continue developing after down seasons last year. Cooper Beebe, he's become a solid center there. On the defensive side, like I said, Jerry Jones, heavily invested in the defense after moving on from Micah Parsons. Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark, they anchor the interior. Rashawn Gary brings pass rushing ability off the edge. A linebacker, not the biggest strength, but they have enough talent on defense. The secondary, they're bringing Kobe Durant in from the Los Angeles Rams, Jalen Thompson in from the Arizona Cardinals. So those are solid free agent additions. Landing Caleb Downs at 11, best case scenario. I love this pick. I think he fits perfectly in that defense. And then don't forget Deron Bland. He's still a troublesome corner for receivers. But yeah, final thoughts. Dallas improves from 7-8-1 last season. I think they bounced back and finished 11-6 with the wild card bid, but I do have them falling in the wild card round. The New York Football Giants. I do think the Giants are moving in the right direction. I just don't think they're there yet. I believe John Harbaugh is the right coach for this rebuild. And I wouldn't even go, I'm not even going to say it's a rebuild because it's not. They got the pieces. It's just, I just don't think they're as good. I don't think they're as good now, but they'll get there. At quarterback, Jackson Dart did surprise me last offseason. He showed the ability to make plays. It might be early, but I think the Giants may have finally found their quarterback. The running game, Cam Scatterbo plays extremely physical style football. I do question if he'll hold up. The off-field decisions that he's been making do concern me as well. Even though if he does go down with an injury, though, Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary gives them a solid committee there on the run game. But yeah, like I said, Scatterbo, they got him in the 4th round last year. I thought that was a solid value pick. But the way he plays, his decisions, I just don't know if he ends up lasting in this league. But to receiver, Malik Neighbors, he's obviously the centerpiece. He's healthy entering camp. He looks good too. They did lose Wendell Robinson in free agency, ended up signing with the Titans. But Joe Stone, he didn't make any splashes. He did add plenty of competition, though. Calvin Austin, Darnell Mooney, Juju Smith-Schuster, Braxton Berrios, Odell Beckham Jr. still staying in there. So, this is probably his last dance here. Darius Slayton's still around. I love how he's just bought into the system. He'll play wherever they, want to put him. And then they also added a 3rd-round pick, Malachi Fields, who adds size to that receiver room. I liked him coming out of Notre Dame. At tight end, Isaiah Likely reunites with John Harbaugh. I think he's earned this opportunity to be a starting tight end here. The offensive line quietly finished top 10 last season, 4th best pass blocking efficiency. Andrew Thomas remains, the reliable blindside protector. Jermaine Ule-Munor had a very underrated season last year, allowed a league low 3.3% pressure rate among right tackles last season. So very underrated player there. 1st-round pick, Francis Muigawa. He's should immediately help. He looks like he's slated to start at right guard this year. On the defensive side, the defensive line, losing Dexter Lawrence, that is a big, a huge blow. DJ Reader helps, but he's not replacing Lawrence. On the edge, though, you got Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, and now Arvell Reese, who they took 5th overall. Outstanding edge rotation there. Linebacker Jermaine Edmonds was a quality addition. He'll be expected to lead this defense this year. The secondary, this group struggled last season. They had Greg Newsome as well as Ardarius Washington. Washington, another Harbaugh guy from Baltimore, but they should immediately help. Colton Hood has a chance to start opposite of Paulson Adebo. Adebo, I still think he's an underrated corner. I liked him come out years ago out of Stanford. But yeah, Colton Hood, though, he's got a chance to start here. And then Javon Holland, he continues to add stability at safety. But yeah, final thoughts. Giants are improving. Harbaugh, he has his team heading in the right direction. I think he's the guy there. I just don't think, I don't think they're quite there yet. I think they need another year. I think they're a year away. So I think they finish 89 this season and miss the playoffs. The Washington Commanders. So I obviously got them finishing last in the NFC East this year. Big picture, Jaden Daniels, he is healthy entering camp. I believe Washington has their quarterback of the future. I just don't think the roster around him is as talented, though. So I don't think they can make a deep playoff run like they did 2 seasons ago, making it to the NFC Championship game. But yeah, Daniels, he has all the tools to become, a franchise quarterback. The Commanders simply need to, build around him, though. The run game, I really like the depth here. I mean, although they don't have like a true number 1 running back, but you got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, signed Rashad White, and Jerome Ford via free agency. White coming from Tampa Bay, Ford coming from Cleveland. Added Katron Allen in the 6th round. Good value pick there. So, yeah, this is one of the deeper running back rooms in the league. At receiver, I still think this group can use another defensive maker to pair with Terry McLaurin. At tight end, this is one of the biggest concerns on this roster. I don't think they have enough there. The offensive line, Washington's line, ranked middle to bottom third last year. Laramie Tunsil, remains one of the NFL's, most consistent left tackles. Josh Connolly Jr. had an abysmal rookie season last year, allowed 8 sacks and 43 pressures, which is ridiculous. I mean, first round pick, though, they're committed to him. He's still slated to start there at right tackle. But I am looking for an improvement season for him. I mean, you have to with 8 sacks and 43 pressures. And Sam Cosmi, though, he's been solid when he's been healthy. So that's the key. He's got to stay healthy. On defense, Charles Aminu, Adafi, Owe were good additions. Deron Payne continues to anchor the middle. Better group, but I still don't think it's dominant. At linebacker, this might be the strength of the defense. So they signed Leo Chanel, Kailavan, Chason, and then they took Sonny Styles with the 7th pick. It's a very impressive linebacker group, very impressive unit. So they practically revamped the whole lineup. So they're going to have 3 brand new linebackers this season. But I love the additions. I love everything that they've done this offseason to that group. The secondary, this group desperately needed help after ranking at the near the bottom of the league last year. Signed Trey Amos and Amick Robertson in free agency. Also added Nick Cross at safety. So those additions should impact alongside Mike Sanderistol. The final thoughts: Washington, like I said, has their franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels. They're adding young building blocks, but I don't think they're ready to contend just yet. I don't see them making as deep as a run, like I said, like they did 2 seasons ago, making it to the NFC Championship. So I do have them finishing at the bottom of the division with a 6-11 record. And now we shift over to the NFC South. So at the top of the division, I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Big picture, I have a strong feeling about this Tampa Bay team this year. They did lose Mike Evans, the free agency. So, I mean, that's going to look weird with him not being in a Buccaneers jersey this season. They are also dealing with the Baker Mayfield contract situation, and now the Vita Vea requesting a trade this offseason, this week. So, even with those distractions, though, I think this is the most complete team in the NFC South this year. So I expect another division title, like in years past, and I do expect a playoff victory as well. Like I said, Baker Mayfield, he's entering the season without a contract extension, but he's committed to playing the season. I actually do think it benefits him. So, I mean, hear me out, though. I mean, in years past, Mayfield has always played better when he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. So whether it gets extended now or next offseason, I expect another good season from him. The run game, Rashad White departed free agency, signed with the Commanders, but they do bring in Kenneth Gainwell from the Steelers. I think he pairs well with Bucky Irving. So, I mean, that's a really solid 1-2 punch there. At receiver, like I said, it'll be strange not seeing Mike Evans in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers jersey for the first time in 12 seasons. But Emeka Egbuka steps in receiver 1 role. He proved himself last season, with the injuries to Evans and then also the injuries to Godwin. Chris Godwin, though, he's expected to be ready week 1. Although Tampa Bay's Todd Bowles says they won't rush him back. But so he continues being that receiver 2 role, primary slot receiver for them on offense. I'm still waiting to see something from Jalen McMillan. He's got to take that next step. Baker has developed great chemistry with Tez Johnson. That actually reminds me a lot of the Rashard Higgins relationship he had in Cleveland. They have like that chemistry and they just click. And then also, I mean, don't overlook Ted Hurst, who they took in the 3rd round this year. Overall, I still think this is a good receiver room without Mike Evans. At tight end, Kadon continues to be a reliable target there for Baker Mayfield. The offensive line, Tristan Wirfs, he remains one of the best left tackles in football. He allowed just 2 sacks and 23 pressures last season. Luka Decky missed some time last season, but he continues to develop into one of the better right tackles in football. Tampa Bay actually rewarded him on a contract extension last offseason. Cody Mauch missed almost all of last season, but him and Graham Barton, who they took last year, both look like excellent draft picks. So, yeah, overall, this is a very good offensive line as long as everybody stays healthy. On the defensive side, like I said, this group does become a concern if Vita Vea ends up being traded. So, I mean, they'll need other players to step up. Ruben Bain Jr., one of my favorite prospects in the draft. I don't care about the arm length concerns. I really don't. I think he plays phenomenal, and I think he'll end up being one of the steals in the draft since he fell to them at 15. At linebacker, replacing Levante David won't be easy after 14 outstanding seasons from him. Jason Lick did do a great job adding Alex Anzalone in free agency from Detroit. And then I also love the Josiah Trotter selection that they got in the back end of the second round. So great additions to that linebacker room. The secondary, they lost Jamal Dean, signs with Pittsburgh. Antoine Winfield Jr. Is still one of the NFL's best safeties. Zion McCollum, Tyreek Smith, though, as well as Jacob Parrish, all flashed last season. Benjamin Morrison appears to be healthy heading into camp. But also keep an eye on Keontae Scott, though, who they took in the fourth round. So solid looking group in the secondary. Like I said, being healthy is the key. But yeah, final thoughts. There are some contract distractions, and they lost some key veterans such as Mike Evans. But I still think Tampa Bay is the best team in this division. I expect a better season. They finished 8-9 last year, so I do expect a better season that ends with the division title as well as a playoff win. So I got the Buccaneers finishing 10-7, winning the NFC South, and then winning in the wild card round, but then ultimately losing in the divisional round. The New Orleans Saints. I'm not overly high on the Saints, but I also think they're not as bad as many people believe. They don't have many star names anymore. However, they have solid depth across the board. At quarterback, Tyler Shuck enters camp as QB1. Went 5-4 as a starter last year. Has earned Kellen Moore's trust. I'm still not convinced he's the long-term answer. 26-year-old rookie last year. He's going to be 27 this year. But he's clearly the best quarterback on the roster. They do have Spencer Rattler, who's backing him up. So he's got experience starting with them. So they have options, is where I'm getting at. The run game, Alvin Kamara returns for what looks like it'll be his final season in a Saints jersey. They do add Travis Etienne in free agency. So this has a chance to be one of the strengths of the offense. So you got two crafty running backs there with Kamara and Etienne. I think they'll complement each other very well. At receiver, Chris Olave remains a top target there. Rookie Jordan Tyson should immediately help, should immediately contribute. At tight end, Juwan Johnson's coming off his best season. I don't think he follows it up again with another 800, plus receiving yard season. But again, could prove me wrong. I do like behind them. They got Noah Fant as well, who they signed in free agency, and then they took Oscar Delp out of Georgia in the third round. So nice depth at tight end. The offensive line, this group does have they have a chance to be really good. Kelvin Banks Jr. looks like a franchise left tackle after last season. They took him in the top 10. Looks solid his rookie season. Talise Fuaga continues to develop at right tackle. They took him in the first round 2 seasons ago. David Edwards, he replaces Luke Fortnor, who left in free agency, signed with Carolina. And then Eric McCoy, he's been a staple ever since he was taken in the second round of the 2019 draft. And then, Cesar Ruiz, he rounds out that line. So, a very quality offensive line to me. Again, key, everybody needs to stay healthy. Everybody needs to keep taking that next step. Defensive line is my biggest concern, and it really becomes a big concern, especially with the ACL injury sustained yesterday to Brian Bruzy. That's a big hit to that defense. Cameron Jordan returns for another season. He still gives solid, veteran leadership there. At linebacker, they moved on from Demario Davis. Caden Ellis was signed on, though, comes over from Atlanta. Acquired Tyree Wilson from the Raiders in a trade. P. Warner and Chase Young, they still continue to play solid football. So I do like that linebacker room. The secondary, they lost Alante Taylor via free agency. They bring in MJ Emerson, who I thought was a great addition. They got him on the dollar. So they got him cheap for 1 season. Kool-Aid McKinstry now officially steps into that cornerback 1 role. He pretty much was playing that last year, but now it's set in stone. He's the guy now. Quincy Riley is another young player to watch. He looks to play on the opposite side, that cornerback 2 position. Final thoughts. I'm still concerned at quarterback. Losing Brian Bruzzy hurts the defense. Good depth, but I still don't think they're a playoff team. But again, I don't think they're as bad as people say they are. So I got them finishing below 500 with an 8-9 record, but not as bad. I think a lot of people got them kind of in the 5-6 win range. So yeah, 8-9, but missed the playoffs. To the Carolina Panthers. Big picture, Carolina is they're getting closer. They won't win the division like they did last year. Keep in mind they finished 8-9, still won the division last year. Came down to the last game against Tampa Bay. They did give the Rams a run for their money in the playoffs. But if they continue to draft well, they continue to develop these players, I think they'll be a consistent playoff team. Bryce Young bounced back nicely last season. He restored some confidence after his rookie season. Then, he was he was benched his second season. So this is going to be year 4 for him. He was benched second season, but then he did regain the starting role from Andy Dalton, who's no longer there. But he's QB1 right now. I'm still not sold that he's the long-term answer, but he definitely made progress last year. The running game, Chuba Hubbard remains running back 1. Rico Dowdle wasn't brought back. I do believe that if they didn't give Hubbard that contract extension last offseason, I think that Dowdle could have very well still been in a Panther jersey. But Hubbard gets the nod. Jonathan Brooks is finally healthy after missing a combined 31 games in his first 2 seasons in the league. So that's a big boost for this offense. At receiver, Tay-Ty Roa McMillan headlines that group after winning Offensive Rookie of the Year last season. Xavier Leggett has upside as well. Jalen Coker continues to be, reliable receiver 3. So he fills in nicely there as a slot. One of the better undrafted finds, keep in mind, too. Tight end room doesn't really move the needle for me. Offensive line, Akeem Ekwonu. His injuries are a concern to me. He went down in the playoffs. There's no set timetable for his return, but it definitely won't be week 1. So they did go out. They signed Rasheed Walker, who's looking slated to start in at left tackle there. Morgan Freeland, he was brought in. They had some offensive line depth. I do think he's going to compete with Taylor Moton, though, at right tackle for some reps there. Luke Fortner replaces Austin Corbett at center. I think that's an upgrade. Robert Hunt continues to justify that big contract. He's still slated in there at right guard. I expect quality interior protection from him again. And then you have Damian Lewis, who's slated to start at left guard again. He's been playing some solid football. And then as another offensive lineman to watch is Sam Heck out of Kansas State. They took him in the 5th round. Primarily plays center, but he can play the guard as well. So I think they end up getting some reps, whether it's at center or guard. So watch out for Sam Heck. Shifting over to the defensive side, Derek Brown anchors that defense, top 5 defensive tackle. Jalen Phillips adds pass rush ability. The key is simply staying healthy. A lot of money invested in him, but he's got to stay healthy. At linebacker, they had Devin Lloyd, VA free agency, comes over from Jacksonville. That's a great addition. The secondary, J.C. Horn, he's become a lockdown corner. He's in my top 5 as a corner. Mike Jackson has quietly played well. Trayvon Morig is a dependable safety. Watch rookie Will Lee III. They took him in the 4th round. I think he's getting quality reps this year. He played outstanding at Texas A&M last year. Didn't have the flashy stats, but he's got all the makings of a solid cornerback in the NFL. So watch out. I think he gets quality reps. But final thoughts. Carolina, like I said, they're heading in the right direction. I still need Bryce Young to prove he can consistently lead this team. They're close, but not quite there yet. So I do think they take just a small step back just as far as the win-loss category. So I have them finishing 7-10 and missing the playoffs. And then the Atlanta Falcons. Outside their offensive weapons, this roster doesn't impress me. Kevin Stefanski does take over as head coach. I do think this offense fits him. Only time will tell, but I think he meshes well with them. At quarterback, I need to see more from Michael Penix Jr. Tua Tagovailoa, he was brought in to compete, and he has a legitimate shot to win the quarterback job, especially Michael Penix Jr. It looks like it's going to be 4 weeks before he's even practice on 11-on-11. So that gives plenty of time for Tagovailoa to really, separate himself and make some leeway as the QB1. So it looks like Tua has the edge. Could go either way, but I think he ends up starting under center week 1. The run game, Bijan Robinson remains the centerpiece in their run game and in the whole offense. He's one of the league's most versatile backs, if not the best. Brian Robinson Jr. comes in to replace Tyler Algier, the second running back, to complement Robinson. At wide receiver, Drake London's proved he's receiver 1, and Atlanta, showed their loyalty back to him, given that contract extension this offseason. My concern is the depth behind him. So Darnell Mooney, he's gone. Rookie Zachariah Branch has reportedly impressed in camp, but I don't know. He's a receiver too? I don't know. We'll see. At tight end, Kyle Pitts still leads a decent tight end room there. The offensive line, it looks solid. Yes, Caleb McGarry, he did retire this offseason. Juwan Taylor steps in at right tackle to fill that void. Chris Lindstrom remains one of the NFL's best guards. Jake Matthews, he continues to be Mr. Dependable, Mr. Reliable there in Atlanta. Only missing one game his entire NFL career, and that came in his rookie season in 2014 when he was drafted. But he's a good left tackle for them. Good, solid, dependable left tackle there. Going defense, David Onyemata departs in free agency. Brandon Dorlus showed promise last year, had about 8 sacks last year, eight and a half sacks as a defensive tackle. James Pierce had a strong rookie season last year. They actually ended up trading back up into the first round last season to get him. The biggest question, can he stay out of trouble off the field? After the arrest this offseason, there's a little concern there for me, but he's supposed to be cleared. He's supposed to be good. So he's got to keep his head clean. Needs to focus on football. At linebacker, Caden Ellis left free agency, signed with the Saints. Christian Harris was signed, though. And this does give Jalen Walker, who they took in the first round last year as well, gives him an opportunity to get in a bigger role there on defense. Harold Perkins Jr., he's one of my favorite under-the-radar rookies. This is a guy they got in the 6th round. I think this could be a gem of a pick there. He's a guy that had a strong freshman season at LSU. And then he kind of dealt with, some injuries, and then his play just kind of declined a little bit. So it effectively hurt his draft stock. He was a guy that was essentially viewed as a first-round pick years ago, and then obviously, ultimately ends up being a 6th-round pick because of that. I think they find playing time for him. I mean, at first, might be on special teams, but watch out for Harold Perkins Jr. there. Secondary, Jesse Bates and A.J. Terrell, they lead this group. Xavier Watts played very well as a rookie, led all rookies with 5 interceptions and also tied for first with 11 passes defended. So, yeah, heck of a pick there in the 3rd round with them last year. I think he continues to produce well. And then keep an eye out for Avion Terrell, AJ Terrell's brother. They got him in the 2nd round. So I expect him to get some quality playing time this year as well. Final thoughts. Quarterback is still uncertain. Looks like Tua's going to get the nod for week 1, though, with the uncertainty with Michael Penix Jr.'s injury from last year. I'm still not convinced that they have enough receiving talent behind Drake London. But I'm not going so far to say this is a rebuild. But I do think that Atlanta has a bad season and finishes at the bottom of the division this year, at the bottom of the South. So I have them finishing 5-12 and missing the playoffs. And then last, but certainly not least, we go over to the NFC West. At the top of the division, I got the Los Angeles Rams. Big picture, in my opinion, this is the most complete team in all of the NFL. Once again, Les Snead pushes all the chips, in the middle of the table this offseason. They did lose offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur to Arizona, but they did retain defensive coordinator Chris Shula. So I thought that was a huge win for them this offseason. But this team has elite talent on both sides of the football. On both sides of the ball, offense, defense. So I think they're the clear favorite entering this season. Matthew Stafford's coming off an MVP season. He's still playing at an incredibly high level. I still consider him a top 5, quarterback, as well as ESPN did. I ended up having him as 3, same as ESPN. He hasn't shown any signs of slowing down, though. So as long as Stafford is healthy, this offense is dangerous. At running back, Kyren Williams and Blake Corum form an incredible running back duo there. I still think Kyren Williams is one of the underrated running backs in football. I don't think he gets enough respect. I also, I think this could be Blake Corum's last season with the Rams. I think he's shown that he can possibly, be a running back 1. And I think next offseason, I think a team's going to give him that type of money to, have him come in and be running back 1. My receiver, Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, they're an elite receiver tandem there. They obviously give Jamar Chase and T. Higgins a run for their money as the number 1 receiving tandem. At tight end, McVay's expanded over the year into, more 12 personnel, which requires, more tight ends. So, I mean, the Rams have one of the deepest tight end rooms because of this. So, Colby Parkinson, Tyler Higbee, Terrence Ferguson, and then now you got Max Clare, who they took in the 2nd round of Ohio State. So, I mean, there's plenty of versatility and depth at this position. The offensive line, this has actually been one of the more underrated offensive lines in all the NFL. I think they're easily a top 10 unit. Kevin Dotson and Warren McClendon Jr. have been outstanding on the right side with the ball. I think they've played themselves into massive contracts once they're due. Steve Avila, he's developed into a quality and solid left guard. Alert Jackson has had some off-field issues, but I mean, he's been one of the more successful undrafted stories. It looks like he's all good now, but yeah, he's been playing at left tackle. I was very high when he was coming out in the 2021 draft. I had this guy. I can't remember why I had him, but I believe I had him somewhere in the second round, and then he ends up going undrafted. Signs with the Rams, makes the team, and now he's a starter. To the defensive side, this is the best defensive line in football, without a doubt. So, I mean, and that's even before factoring the fact Aaron Donald might possibly return, which I do think he ends up unretiring. I do think he makes that decision to come back. Obviously, the Rams landed Myles Garrett this offseason, so who is the best defensive player in all of football. Got Byron Young, Brandon Fisk, Kobe Turner, Poona Ford. I mean, this group is loaded, from top to bottom. At linebacker, Nathan Landman has really developed into a quality linebacker. I mean, overall, this is a strong position group for Los Angeles. A secondary, they lost Kobe Durant in free agency, signs with the Cowboys, but they upgraded by trading for Trent McDuffie, like I said earlier, pushing all the chips to the center of the table. So they give up first-round pick, bring in Trent McDuffie. They also signed McDuffie's teammate in Kansas City, Jalen Watson. But you also got Cam Curl, who continues to be a reliable veteran. Cameron Kitchens, he brings out playmaking ability. Quinn Lake provides versatility. Emmanuel Forbes took a major leap last season. A former first-round pick by the Commanders. He had 18 passes defended last season, so huge. Overall, this is one of the deepest secondaries in the NFL. So like I said, top 5 offense, top 5 defense. I mean, there's really not many weaknesses on this roster. Les Snead continues to build one of the, premier NFL teams. Everything points towards another championship run. But like I said, so I had them finishing 13-4, and then after the Myles Garrett trade, I got them now as a 14-3 team, winning the NFC West, winning the NFC Championship, and then ultimately beating the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. So the Rams are my Super Bowl pick this year. The Seattle Seahawks, the Super Bowl winning Seattle Seahawks. Big picture, I don't have them winning the NFC West this year. Obviously, I picked the Rams, but I absolutely believe they're a playoff team. They lost several key pieces this offseason. They lost offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, who goes to the Raiders to be head coach. But even with those departures, I still think this is a well-balanced roster. They're built well on both sides of the football. At quarterback, Sam Darnold, he proved the Vikings they should have re-signed him. I mean, talk about a career resurrection. He completely, changed the narrative surrounding his career. I expect another follow-up season with strong quarterback play from him. So I think Seattle's in good hands with Darnold under center. At running back, the run game, they obviously lose Kenneth Walker the third, Super Bowl MVP. He signs with Kansas City this offseason. Zach Charbonnet, he's also expected to miss extended time after getting hurt late in last season. So that opens the door for first-round pick Jadarian Price. He's going to get a lot of opportunities to prove himself. So I think he'll have every opportunity to establish himself as, Seattle's next, feature back in that offense. Our receiver, this is a very talented group. Jackson Smith-Njigba, reigning offensive player of the year. Last year, he convinced everybody he's a top 5 receiver. They rewarded him with a contract as well. Cooper Kupp used to be a Ram number 1 receiver. Now comes in as a complimentary role as a receiver 2. He gives Darnold another proven veteran target there. Rashid Shaheed, who they traded for in the middle of last year, he has game-breaking speed. So this is another dangerous group of weapons here. Another solid receiving room. At tight end, A.J. Barner continues to develop. I think he's turning into a very dependable tight end. Another solid option in Seattle's passing game. The offensive line, huge reason why Sam Darnold had success last season. Charles Cross, hands down, he's a phenomenal left tackle, and they rewarded him with that lucrative contract extension this offseason. Greg Zabel proved why Seattle used a first-round pick on him last year. Everybody was scratching their head with that pick, me included. He proved why. I think he was even in consideration an offensive rookie of the year. Greg Lucas continues to develop into a reliable right tackle there. So overall, this is a very strong offensive line. Plenty of young talent there. To the defensive side, defensive line, the Seahawks lose Boya Mafe, the free agency, signs with Cincinnati. They do return the rest of the defensive line, though. Leonard Williams continues to anchor this group. This unit is one of the NFL's, best against the run, if not the best. I expect them to remain one of the league's better, defensive fronts this year. At linebacker, John Schneider is, he's assembled one of the best linebacker rooms of football. Ernest Jones, the fourth. He's been consistent since he's entered the NFL 5-6 years ago. Drake Thomas continues to emerge as a productive full-time starter next to Jones. So, this is another strength of Seattle's defense. And then the secondary, they obviously they lose both Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant to free agency. Woolen signed with Philadelphia, Bryant signed with Chicago. But even so, this secondary remains loaded with talent. Devon Witherspoon is in conversation as one of the best cornerbacks in football. Nick Emanawari quickly established himself as a top safety last year, winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. So in year two, I expect him to just follow that up. And yet again, a nice, solid, defensive secondary there in Seattle. Do you dare say the Legion of Boom 2.0? They got a Super Bowl victory in their first season there. So let's see. They might be building something there in Seattle. Final thoughts. Like I said, Seattle lost some important pieces this offseason, but I still think they have one of the more complete rosters in the NFC. Their talent on offense, their talent on defense. I expect another successful season. I just don't have them edging out the Rams to win the division. So, I do have them finishing 11-6 with a wild card bid. I ultimately have them losing in the divisional round to the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think the 49ers are the powerhouse they've been of the last several years. I know they've been hit with the injury bug. The talent is still there, though. They have lots of depth on the team. Kyle Shanahan's still one of the best offensive minds of football, if not the best. However, I think the NFC West has closed the gap. I think this is the best division of all football. I still expect San Francisco to be competitive every week. I just don't see them returning to the playoffs this season, and I'll tell you why. At quarterback, Brock Purdy, he's proven he's capable of winning football games. He knows Shanahan's offense inside and out. He's accurate. He's decisive. He gets the ball where it needs to go. I don't think he's an elite quarterback, but I'm not saying he's a game manager either. I think he's in a very good system. I think it fits, and that just proves, any quarterback can thrive in a good system. But as long as the supporting cast stays healthy, Purdy should be as productive as he has been in the past. Running game, Christian McCaffrey, you're always going to have a solid run game with him in the backfield. So, obviously still one of the better running backs in football. One healthy, he's one of the few players, you have to completely game plan around. The biggest question is just, like I said, it's whether he can stay healthy or not. So, if he does, this offense, it just becomes significantly more dangerous. At receiver, this room looks much different than last year. I think it's safe to say that Brandon Ayuk has played his last football in San Francisco. He still remains on the roster, but he's forcing his way out. I don't know why you'd even want him on the roster anyways. Jawan Jennings exits in free agency, signs with Minnesota. But the 49ers, they did quickly reload. They signed Mike Evans. I know he's not the Mike Evans of past. He was injured last year, but he's still all-pro Mike Evans. I still think he still has a couple more years of good football left in him. They also added Christian Kirk, who brings versatility to the position. Dazon Stribling, who they took early in the second round. I question that pick, but he's supposedly becoming one of the big stars in the camp this year. But overall, this still is one of the better receiving corps in the NFC. At tight end, George Kittle, he continues to be one of the NFL's premier tight ends. He's been one of the few players who can dominate as a receiver and blocker, which you don't see much anymore. Usually a tight end's either a receiver or blocker. This guy can do it both. Even entering his 30s, I still think he's among one of the top tight ends in the league. The key is just him staying healthy. He did miss some time last year. George Tunges, he actually filled in nicely in the games that Kittle was absent last year with injury. So I think he's a reliable tight end too there. The offensive line, Trent Williams continues to anchor that offensive line despite his age, 38 years old. He's still playing phenomenal. He's keeping Purdy's jersey clean. He's still one of the premier left tackles in football, like I said, despite his age. Dominique Pooney, he had an impressive rookie season last year. So I think that's a long-term building block there on that offensive line in San Fran. The biggest concern remains the depth across the offensive line, though. Like I said, they did lose Aaron Banks to free agency. They'll need a better overall play than they received last year. So, but yeah, Williams and Pooney, those are some key factors on the offensive line. That's the defensive side. Defensive line, Nick Bosa remains one of the elite pass rushers in the game still. He can completely take over a football game. However, he is coming back from ACL injury, missed 14 games last season. He is expected to be ready week 1, though. So, I mean, the 49ers have some young talent developing around them. Tyleik Williams. However, I don't think this defensive front is as dominant as they've been in years. But like I said, it's going to, Bose has got to stay healthy. Tyleik Williams has to take that next step forward. Fred Warner's the heartbeat of that defense. In my opinion, he is the best linebacker in all football. His instincts, his leadership, his versatility, they're just unmatched. This remains one of the strengths of this defense here. The secondary has improved compared to last season. They have a good mix of veterans and young players. I still think there's questions about their elite passing attacks. They'll need this unit to take a step up like they did from last year, if they want to compete with the NFC's best offenses. Final thoughts. Like I said, San Francisco, they have star power. They have the players. They have the coaches. But I think this division is the strongest of the whole, not only just the NFC, the whole NFL. So, I mean, I think that's going to affect San Francisco. They'll be in playoff conversation all year round. I just don't think they have enough to get there. So, although I do have them finishing 10-7, I think they're left out of the playoffs. And then we have the Arizona Cardinals. Big picture, I think Arizona's headed in the right direction. They added Mike LaFleur, who was plucked from the Sean McVay coaching tree. They have several cornerstone players to build around, but they're still one of the younger rosters in football. They're simply not ready to compete in this division. The future is bright, like I said. I just don't think this is their year. Quarterback, this is obviously biggest question, like it is with most teams. Jacoby Brissett returns for another season. They made him happy. They gave him the money he wanted. Gardner Minshew is brought in to give some more depth at the quarterback position. They also draft Carson Beck in the 3rd round. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some reps early on. So I think this is going to be a situation where you see probably at certain parts in the season, like as the season progresses, I think all 3 of these quarterbacks see playing time. But yeah, like I said, I don't think the long-term answer's on that roster yet. They move on from Kyler Murray, who signs with Minnesota. They got to find a quarterback. The run game, this is the strength of Arizona's offense. Jeremiah Love, arguably the best player in the whole draft. He comes in. I think he has all the makings. He shows superstar potential. James Conner returns for another season. I know he's been hit with the injury bug in the past, but he doesn't need to be the premier back anymore. Trey Benson gives another explosive option there. They also added Tyler Algier in free agency, who was Bijan Robinson's running mate in Atlanta. So I mean, this is one of the deepest running back rooms in the whole NFL. I expect this offense to lean heavily on this run game. At receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. hasn't quite proven he's receiver 1 yet. I know he's dealing with the drop passes this training camp. But the talent is undeniable. I still believe he develops into a better receiver. Michael Wilson, he stepped up. Between him and Trey McBride last year, they actually had 2,000-yard receivers. But yeah, Michael Wilson, like I said, he continues to build and develop into a complementary piece to our receiver. Kendrick Bourne, who they signed, also gives them another experienced target. So yeah, overall, I mean, this group has potential. I mean, they just need a quarterback to consistently give them the football. At tight end, Trey McBride has quickly developed into the best tight end in football. He became a security blanket for Jacoby Brissett last season. Whether it's moving the chains or creating yards after the catch, McBride, he just continues to produce. Like I said, he's in conversation to be the best tight end in all of football. He's proven that. On the offensive line, Paris Johnson Jr., he headlines this offensive line. I think he's become one of the better young tackles in football. Arizona also drafted Chase Besantis in the 2nd round this year early on. So that's another investment in the trenches. This group is improving each year. I still think they need more depth, but the future does look bright for them. To the defensive side, defensive line, Josh Sweat now headlines the defensive front after finishing with 12 sacks last season. He's one bright spot there. He's proven to be a veteran, among this group. Arizona continues to add talent around him. I still think they need another consistent pass rusher, though. But like I said, this unit is heading in the right direction. That linebacker, this is a group that has plenty of room to grow. They fly around, they play hard. I just don't think they're ready to be one of the better defensive units in the league. Budda Baker is still a leader of this defense. He's one of the NFL's most respected safeties. Will Johnson has all the, he shows plenty of promise there at corner. Denzel Burke, also last year, he showed promise, had 3 interceptions, tied 2 other rookies with 11 passes defended. There's exciting talent in this Cardinals secondary. But yeah, I mean, final thoughts. I actually like where Arizona's heading. I mean, they have several players to build around: Jeremiah Love, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Buda Baker on defense. I just think they're another year, maybe 2 years away from competing. So, I mean, unfortunately, I do have them finishing 3-14 again. Unfortunately, missing the playoffs. But like I said, I mean that offense is loaded with talent. They need to find a quarterback. Find a quarterback. That's going to be an exciting offense to watch. But that'll do it for episode 9 of Jay by the Bay. Thank you so much to the Jay by the Bay faithful. I love you guys so much. Seriously, if you guys love it, like I said, if you love these episodes, please continue to hit that subscribe button. Spread the word. Like I said, I know this is a lot of information. It's a lot of stats, all that stuff thrown at you. I'm a nerd when it comes to stuff. I try to be as thorough as possible, just breaking down each team. But yeah, like I said, if you love these episodes, please hit that subscribe button. Also, if you love the graphics, I post all the graphics on the Instagram page at Jay by the Bay. That's at Jay by the Bay on Instagram. But yeah, the Jay by the Bay faithful, I love you guys so much. Like I said, I do this for you guys. I wouldn't be here without you. Stay tuned for episode 10 on Monday. I think you guys will like the episode. Blair will be back joining me, co-hosting. So, but yeah, I enjoy this so much. But until next time, guys, as always, I love you guys. God bless. Take care.